Hello, hello. Good evening, and everyone. Uh, there are times when the world feels loud, restless, and filled with um, endless demands. Yet beneath the surface, there is a quieter layer of understanding that only reveals itself when you choose to slow down and listen with intention. In that stillness, wisdom begins to take shape, guiding your thoughts away from distraction and towards something far more grounded and enduring. So, welcome back to Michael Reads, a place where ideas are not simply spoken and forgotten, but explored deeply and carried forward into everyday life with purpose and clarity. This is where ancient insight meets modern reality, allowing lessons written centuries ago to influence how we think, act, and grow today. Tonight, we arrive at the final stage of a remarkable journey as we explore Book 12 of Meditations, written by the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, whose reflections have guided many minds across generations. This closing section does not introduce something entirely new, but instead refines everything that has come before, bringing together the core principles of discipline, awareness, acceptance, and responsibility into one final powerful message. Before we move further into these final reflections, take a moment to act with intention, please, by supporting this channel through liking the stream, subscribing for more content, and sharing this space with someone who is ready to challenge the way they think and live. Make the decision now, not to simply listen, but to apply, because growth begins the moment action replaces hesitation. So, as Marcus continues his reflections, there's a quiet urgency woven into his words, not in a way that creates pressure, but in a manner that encourages awareness of how quickly life moves forward without pause. Time does not slow itself for convenience, and moments do not repeat themselves once they have passed, which makes the present the only place where meaningful change can truly occur. He reminds us that delaying action often feels harmless in the moment, yet over time it becomes a pattern that distances us from who we are capable of becoming, turning intention into regret through inaction. Instead of waiting for ideal circumstances to appear, he urges us to recognize that the conditions we have now are already sufficient to begin. Living well is not something reserved for the future, because the future is shaped entirely by what is done today. Aurelius returns to the idea of living in harmony with nature, though not in a superficial sense tied to the physical world, but rather in alignment with your own inner structure as a rational and purposeful human being. When your actions match your design, there is a sense of ease and clarity that replaces confusion and resistance. Struggle often arises when you attempt to move against what you are built for, chasing things that do not contribute to your growth or avoiding responsibilities that shape your character. By contrast, when you accept your role and act with intention, there is a natural flow that carries you forward. To live well, then, is to understand yourself deeply and to act in accordance with that understanding. And the thoughts you allow to settle in your mind are not neutral, because they influence how you interpret the world and how you respond to it. Marcus encourages a level of discipline that requires you to observe your thinking carefully, rejecting what weakens you and reinforcing what strengthens your character. External events remain outside your control, yet your reaction to them is entirely within your power, which makes your mindset one of the most valuable tools you possess. By focusing only on what you can influence, you remove unnecessary stress and direct your energy toward meaningful action. Clarity of thought leads to clarity of action, and both together shape the direction of your life. There is a strong reminder throughout this book that the opinions of others, while often pursued, hold little lasting value when viewed from a broader perspective. Praise fades quickly, recognition shifts from one person to another, and even the most celebrated individuals are eventually forgotten by time. Marcus challenges the idea that external approval should guide your decisions, encouraging instead a focus on internal standards rooted in integrity and purpose. When your actions are aligned with what is right rather than what is popular, you build a foundation that does not depend on approval of others. True confidence grows from within, not from applause. Uh, Death in this book is presented not as something to fear, but as something to understand, because its inevitability brings clarity to how life should be lived. When you accept that your time is limited, trivial concerns begin to lose their importance, allowing you to focus on what truly matters. Rather than creating anxiety, this awareness can become a source of motivation, encouraging you to act with purpose and to make decisions that reflect your values. By keeping this perspective in mind, you are less likely to waste time on distractions that do not contribute to your growth or fulfillment. In this way, the end of life becomes a guide for how to live it well. He also talks about simplicity as a strength. Complexity often rises when unnecessary elements are introduced into your thinking and behavior. So, creating confusion where clarity should exist. Marcus promotes a simpler approach, one that focuses on speaking truthfully, acting justly, and thinking rationally without overcomplication. When you remove what is not essential, you create space for what truly matters, allowing your actions to become more intentional and your decisions more effective. Simplicity does not mean lack of depth, but rather the removal of distraction. Strength is often found in what you choose to leave out. He talks about ownership of your life. Uh, like responsibility sits at the core of Stoic philosophy, and Marcus reinforces the idea that your life is shaped by your choices rather than your circumstances. Blame shifts attention away from growth, while ownership brings it back to where it belongs. When you accept full responsibility, you gain the ability to respond directly, to improve your action, and to move forward with greater control over your direction. This does not mean that everything is within your influence, but it does mean that how you respond always is. Through ownership comes empowerment. He talks about purpose through action. And he mentions that purpose is not something that appears suddenly, but something that develops through consistent effort and deliberate action. Each day presents an opportunity to move closer to your potential, provided that you choose to engage with it fully. Marcus highlights the importance of doing the work in front of you rather than becoming overwhelmed by what lies ahead, because progress is built step by step rather than all at once. Meaning is created through what you repeatedly choose to do. So, with that introduction, we go into the final chapter, book 11, No, sorry, book 12. What am I talking about? Oh, yeah, book 12. So if you do have a copy, uh, please grab your copy. If not, just sit back and listen. And as we go through book 12. All those things at which you wish to arrive by a crooked road you can have now if you do not refuse them. And this means if you will take no notice of all the past and trust the future to providence and direct the present only conformably to piety and justice, conformably to piety, that you may be content with the lot which is assigned to you, for nature designed it for you and you for it, conformably to justice, that you may always speak the truth freely and without disguise, and do the things which are agreeable to law and according to the worth of each. And let neither another man's wickedness hinder you, nor opinion nor voice, or the sensations of the poor flesh which has grown around you, for the passive part will look at this. If then, whatever the time may be when you shall be near to your departure, neglecting everything else, you shall respect only your ruling faculty and the divinity within you. And if you shall be afraid, not because you must some time cease to live, but if you shall fear never to have begun to live according to nature, then you will be a man worthy of the universe which has produced you, and you will cease to be a stranger in your native land and to wonder at things which happen daily as if they were something unexpected, and to be dependent on this or that. God sees the minds of all men without the material clothing and impurities. For with his intellectual part alone, he touches the intelligence which has flowed and been derived from himself into these bodies. And if you also use yourself to do this, you will rid yourself of much trouble. For he who disregards the poor flesh which envelops him, surely he will not trouble himself by looking after fame and such like externals and shows. You are composed of three things: a little body, a little breath, and intelligence. The first two are yours only so far as it is your duty to take care of them, but the third alone is completely yours. Therefore, if you shall separate from yourself, that is, from your understanding of whatever others do or say, and whatever you have done or said yourself, and whatever future things trouble you because they may happen, and whatever in the body which envelops you, or in the breath which has by nature associated with the body, is attached to you independent of your will, so that the intellectual power, exempt from the things of fate, can live pure and free by itself, doing what is just and accepting what happens and saying the truth. If you will separate, I say, from this ruling faculty the things which are attached to it by the impressions of sense, and the things of time to come and of time that is past, and will make yourself like Empedocles, a sphere all round and in joyous rest. And if you shall strive to live only what is really your life, that is, the present, when you will be able to pass that portion of life which remains for you up to the time of your death, free from perturbations, nobly and obedient to your own daemon. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. If then a god or a wise teacher should present himself to a man and bid him to think of nothing and to design nothing which he would not express as soon as he conceived it, he could not endure it even for a single day. So much more respect have we to what our neighbors shall think of us than to what we shall think of ourselves. How can it be that the gods, after having arranged all things well and benevolently for mankind, have overlooked us alone, that some men and very good men, and men who, as we may say, have had most communion with the divinity, and through pious acts and religious observances have been most intimate with the divinity, when they have once died, should never exist again, but should be completely extinguished. But if this is so, be assured that if it should have been otherwise, the gods should have done it. For if it were just, it would also be possible, and if it were according to nature, nature would have had it so. But because it is not so, if in fact it is not so, be convinced that it should have not been so, for you see even of yourself that in the inquiry you are disputing with the deity, and we should not dispute with the gods unless they were most excellent and most just. But if this is so, they would not have allowed anything in the ordering of the universe to be neglectful, unjust, and irrational. Practice yourself even in the things of that which you despair of accomplishing. For even the left hand, which is ineffectual for all other things, for want of practice, holds the reins more vigorously than the right hand. Consider in what condition, both in body and soul, a man should be when he is overtaken by death, and consider the shortness of life, the boundless abyss of time past and future, the feebleness of all matter. Contemplate the formative principles of things bare of their coverings, and the purposes of actions. Consider what pain is, what pleasure is, and death and fame. Who is to himself the cause of his uneasiness? How no man is hindered by another, that everything is an opinion. In the application of your principles, you must be like the pianist, not like the gladiator, for the gladiator lets fall the sword which he uses and is killed, but the other always has his hand and needs to do nothing else than use it. See what things are in themselves, dividing them into matter, form, and purpose. What a power man has to do nothing except what God will approve, and to accept all that God may give him. With respect to that which happens conformably to nature, we should blame neither gods, for they do nothing wrong either voluntarily or involuntarily, nor men, for they do nothing wrong except involuntarily. Consequently, we should blame nobody. How ridiculous and what a stranger he is who is surprised at anything which happens in life. Either there is a fatal necessity, an invincible order, or a kind providence, or a confusion without a purpose and without a director. If then there is an invincible necessity, why do you resist? But if there is a providence which allows itself to be appeased, make yourself worthy of the help of the divinity. But if there is confusion with your governor, be content that in such storms of life you have in yourself a certain ruling intelligence, and even if the storm carries you away, let it carry away the poor flesh, the poor breath, everything else, for the intelligence at least it will not carry away. Does the light of the lamp shine without losing its splendor until it is extinguished? And shall the truth which is in you and justice and temperance be extinguished before your death? When a man has presented the appearance of having done wrong, say, how then do I know if this is a wrongful act? And even if he has done wrong, how do I know that he has not condemned himself? And so this is like tearing his own face. Consider that he who would not have the bad man do wrong is like the man who would not have the fig tree bear juice from the figs, and infants to cry and the horse to neigh, and whatever else must of necessity must be. For what must a man do who is such a character? If then you are irritable, cure this man's disposition. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Let your efforts be in everything always observing what the thing is which produces for you an appearance, and resolve it by dividing it into the formal, the material, the purpose, and the time within which it must end. Perceive at least that you have in you something better and more divine than the things which cause the various effects, as it were pull you by the strings. What is there now in your mind? Is it fear or suspicion or desire or anything of the kind? First, do nothing inconsiderately, nor without a purpose. Second, take your acts refer to nothing else than to a social end. Consider that before long you will be nobody and nowhere, nor will any of the things exist which you now see, nor any of those who are now living. For all things are formed by nature to change and be turned and to perish in order that other things in continuous succession may exist. Consider that everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power. Take away then, when you choose, your opinion, and like a mariner who has reached the high land, you will find calm, everything stable, and a waveless bay. Anyone, any one activity, whatever it may be, when it has ceased at its proper time, suffers no evil because it has ceased, nor he who has done this act does he suffer any evil for this reason that the act has ceased. In like manner, then the whole which consists of all the acts, which is your life, if they cease at their proper time, suffers no evil for this reason that it has ceased, nor he who has terminated the series at the proper time has he been ill dealt with. But the proper time and the limit nature fixes, sometimes as an old age, the peculiar nature of man, but always the universal nature, by the change of whose parts the whole universe continues ever young and perfect. And everything which is useful to the universal is always good and in season. Therefore, the termination of life for every man is no evil, because neither is it shameful, since it is both independent of the will and not opposed to the general interest, but it is good, since it is seasonable and profitable to and congruent with the universal. For thus too he is moved by the deity, who is moved in the same manner with the deity and moved towards the same things in his mind. These three principles you must have in readiness. In the things which you do not do anything either inconsiderately or otherwise than as justice herself would act, but with respect to what may happen to you from without, consider that it happens either by chance or according to providence, and you must neither blame chance nor accuse providence. Second, consider that every being is formed from a seed, from a moment in time, and lives from the reception of a soul to the giving back of the same, and of what things every being is compounded, and into what things it is resolved. Third, if you should suddenly be raised up above the earth and should look down on human things and observe the variety of them, how great it is, and at the same time also should see at a glance how great is the number of beings who dwell around in the air and the ether. Consider that as often as you should be raised up, you would see the same things, the same form and the shortness of duration. Are these things to be proud of? Cast away opinion, you will be saved. Who then hinders you from casting it away? When you are troubled about anything, you have forgotten this, that all things happen according to the universal nature, and forgotten this, that a man's wrongful act is nothing to you. And further, you have forgotten this, that everything which happens always happened and will happen and now happens everywhere. Forgotten this too, how close is the friendship between a man and a whole human race, for it is a community not of a little blood or seed, but of intelligence. And you have forgotten this too, that every man's intelligence is a god and is an efflux of the deity, and forgotten this, that nothing is a man's own, but that his child and his body and his very soul came from the deity. Forgotten this, that everything is opinion, and lastly, you have forgotten that every man lives the present time only and loses only this. Constantly bring to your recollection those who have complained greatly about anything, those who have been most conspicuous by the greatest fame or misfortunes or hostility or fortunes of any kind. Then think, where are they all now? Smoke and ash and a story, or not even a story, and let there be present into your mind also everything that is short, that everything of this sort, how Fabius Catulinus lived in the country, and Lucius Lupus in the gardens, and Stertinius at Baiae, and Tiberius at Caprae, and in time think of the eager pursuit of anything conjoined with pride, and how worthless everything is after which men violently strain, and how much more philosophical it is for a man in the opportunities presented to him to show. And it simply says on there, end. That is the end of the book. As we step back from the final words of meditations, there's a sense that Marcus Aurelius has given us. What he has given us is not a set of instructions to follow blindly, but a framework to think more clearly about how we live. His reflections challenge us to confront uncomfortable truths, to question our habits, and to examine whether our actions align with the person we aim to become. One of the most striking elements of this final book is its consistency, as it reinforces ideas we have encountered throughout the entire work, showing that mastery does not come from discovering new concepts, but from applying the same principles repeatedly with discipline and awareness. This raises an important question. How often do we seek new information while neglecting to apply what we already know? Another point worth considering is the balance between acceptance and action, because while Stoicism teaches us to accept what lies beyond our control, it equally demands that we take responsibility for what remains within it. This balance requires constant attention, as it is easy to drift too far in either direction, becoming either passive or overly controlling. There is also a strong emphasis on perspective, particularly in how we view challenges, setbacks, and even success. Marcus encourages us to see events as neutral, shaped by the meaning we assign to them, which places a great deal of responsibility on our interpretation of circumstances. This idea alone can transform the way we approach difficulty, turning obstacles into opportunities for growth. And finally, there is a recurring theme of morality which serves as a grounding force throughout the book, reminding us that time is finite and that every decision carries weight because it cannot be undone. This awareness has the potential to sharpen focus, reduce distraction, and encourage more intentional a more intentional way of living. As you reflect on everything covered in this journey, consider what stands out most and how it applies to your own life, because the value of this text lies not in understanding it intellectually, but in living it practically. If this journey through meditations has added value to your thinking, take action now by liking this stream, please. It's totally free of charge and doesn't take a lot of effort. Subscribe to the channel as well and share this with someone who you care about, who is ready to elevate their mindset, or who seems to be lost or misguided. And just share this with them. Have them pay attention, so that hopefully some of these words can elevate their mindset. Do not let these ideas remain just as words alone. Carry them forward and allow them to shape how you live each day. So sadly, this brings us to the final book of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, marking the end of an incredible journey through one of the most powerful philosophical works ever written. I mean, what blows my mind is Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. Now, if you think of the person, he's the person who guided and directed the Roman Empire, who is in a position similar to his these days, who emulates everything that we have heard from Marcus. I wonder. Leave your answers in the comments below. Who do you think comes even close? And as always, on Michael Reads, the next live session will be a reflective one where we visit the entire book. Although I'm thinking of just doing a quick video purely on what we know, everything we know about Marcus Aurelius and what he actually did and how it benefited the people, because this book is a manual for how he should conduct himself and how he encourages others to conduct himself. But I want to create a quick video just talking about how he actually put all of this into practice based on the evidence that we have. Yeah, and then after that, I will revisit the entire book, moving chapter by chapter to bring everything together into a clear and practical summary. And that is not a session to be missed. During that live, I will also be announcing the next book we will be covering, along with some exciting changes you can expect to see on Michael Reads. So make sure you keep an eye on the community page and keep your notifications on so that you do not miss what is coming next. So until then, keep reading, keep growing, and keep moving forward. And I would like to say a massive thank you for being here with me, taking your time, and listening to me as I read. Thank you from Michael Reads. Take care.